Good afternoon, class. As you just heard, we are Team Shake and Bake. This is Isabel, Richie, Robert, and I am Eli. Isabel and Richie are now going to hand you your executive summaries. We're just going to tell you exactly what we're talking about. Robert and Richie also engineered the PowerPoint, so kudos to them. All right, so today we're talking about building sustainability within the Pikes Peak Community College recycling system and making sure that everybody is both educated and empowered to be recycling properly and not recycling things that will further contaminate our general recycling program. So the purpose of this process is to find a solution for better recycling and reduce contamination within the campus. And this is really important because really the recycling going on in America has not been at its finest. China is actually sending a lot of our recycling back to us because it's completely contaminated with different food and things that are in fact not recyclable, as we were hearing from Conrad near the beginning of this project. And also to demonstrate why recycling is important. So again, making sure that we're not polluting our country and our globe with all of this garbage that is just kind of sitting around, not degrading. So we're trying to be able to get that to into the recycling process of becoming something new. All right, so, okay. So we actually did this audit with Conrad a few weeks ago. It was where we would go around and we would just pull out what was in the recycling bin, separate out what was actually recyclable versus what was not. And what we found was that many of the things that were in the recycling bins, in fact, the majority of them shouldn't have been there and were contaminating the entire bin. And so we were trying to gain awareness towards that and making sure that the students are able to be empowered to recycle properly. So another big part of this project is to make sure that we have the right stakeholders. So we need to be communicating this to the student body and to the faculty. And a lot of that, one of the big important parts is being able to get the director of student life on board with any of our ideas that we have and being able to talk to him directly and making sure that he or she is working towards this goal as well as we are, and making sure that our ideas are being outspoken. So like the other day when we were having pizza with the president, somebody brought up the idea of having, the recycling bins here in the T building. And the president is actually now taking that into consideration just because somebody brought it up. So just keeping people informed is a really, really good way to promote recycling. So there's these 4 criteria for this recycling process. Lower contamination, which basically what we were just saying, keeping the food out of the recycling, keeping the recyclable materials in there and making sure that they can actually be recycled. Increasing diversion, so not just having that landfill and recycling, but maybe adding some more diverse aspects such as compost to be able to, so that we're not just putting a bunch of different stuff in one container, because that gives room for a lot of different mistakes to be made. Fast and easy solutions are really important. You want students to be able to come up to this and be able to know immediately, I need to put this in either the landfill or I need to put this in the recycling. So they're not just standing there looking at all the different criteria on the sheet of paper, making sure that they're trying to figure out what to put where and all the confusion, making sure that it's able to be read and able to be followed. And also keeping it under a small budget. Our idea that we're having is this idea of shadow boxes, and that's actually kind of there's a wide range in prices available for that. We're going to see that and talk about it a little later, just depending on what kind of material you use. These are some things that have been done in the past that either helped a little bit or didn't really do much. We've had recycling games where people will participate in activities that are meant to educate them about the recycling process and what some do's and don'ts related to recycling. Tokens from the cafe, I know they offer a discount for people that bring in their own mugs to fill with coffee instead of buying new plastic. We've also even had a recycling field trip and one-time events that can only happen on a certain day, so people will come in, we'll give them some food, and we'll talk to them a little bit about the recycling. One of our big ideas was having rotating signage. So having signs like this on easels that kind of talk about recycling and what some do's and don'ts related to recycling, so what can be recyclable and what is not. And the big part of this is keeping it rotating around the campus. So move it from week to week from one place to another, because that way it'll be drawing the students' attention to it, because when you see something that's out of place or something that doesn't belong, you're going to be more likely to look at it for a little longer than if it was just there stagnant for a long period of time. Oops. Okay. So another idea is having this updated signage, so more engaging signs, larger and clearer details. So you have this paper, plastic bottles, cans, etc., and some of the check marks and the X's, things that you can recycle if it involves paper, and things that absolutely won't work. Just having it clear like that, having the better representation for proper recycling. And this was our big idea, was having this more definitive way of recycling called shadow boxes, where instead of having a two-dimensional piece of paper that's directing you where to put your trash, you actually have these three-dimensional boxes with objects inside of them, so that you can just look at it. And we were even thinking of putting a lot of trash that we actually carry at the college, things like soda bottles that we actually sell, having them in those boxes so you can easily recognize something that you bought and then throw it in the proper container. Having that compost, recycling, and trash, again with that diversity, having those three different areas, so there's more spread out, and so it's easier to make that decision. And this was actually the better one that we saw. That last one was actually an example from Whole Foods, where they would have that set up where people could throw away their leftovers into the proper bins. But this one is even a less expensive option, where these are actually just blackboards that you have above the bins, and you just tape or glue these pieces of trash to it, and you can label it with the chalk and change it and update it. It's easier to update because you don't have to completely redo it if you want to make something different. And so that will be a really easy, that just grabs your attention a lot more than having these two-dimensional pieces of paper or picture frames hanging above it, because when you see this, you can actually have something in your hand that you're trying to throw away and maybe even see the exact thing right above where it's supposed to be, making it easier to recycle. And this was actually, we did some research and found this at Harvard University, where they were finding more sustainable ways to recycle, and this was something that they came up with, was their idea for recycling. And so we decided to kind of mimic that and see what it leads to. And then our third idea is to just keep introducing that sustainability into the PPCC culture. First of all, gaining that support from the Director of Student Life, maybe even integrating sustainability into our mission statements, so that it's clear that we're about recycling and we're trying to better our earth and our living space. Also making sure that we're integrating that into the student orientations, so that the first thing that you're telling students as they come in is how to recycle properly. And even using the recency effect that we've been learning of, the first thing that you teach somebody is often something that's going to stick. And so making sure that we're informing people, maybe even sending them on that audit, as that group was suggesting, to just educate them further about their recycling. And also another thing included with that sustainability is keeping merchandise in the bookstore and the cafeteria area that is reusable, made out of recyclable materials. There's a lot of space in the cafe where we could be selling reusable bottles or clothing made out of recycled materials. We offer that discount for if you bring in your own water bottle and you want to fill it up instead of buying it from new plastic. And if you actually we're selling those reusable containers, that just adds to that benefit. All right, so in total, we've kind of talked about having the rotated signage, updated signage, the shadow boxes, and introducing the sustainability into the culture of PPCC. And so we would just like to say thank you and keep recycling.